with 4th District Court of Appeals Judge Marie Hoover. Welcome to the podcast, Judge Hoover. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Part of what we like to do is let people take a few minutes to introduce themselves, find out, how you came to be sitting here across from me and became a judge. So can you start off telling us a little bit about yourself, your path to becoming, and this is really cool to hear, the first woman judge on the 4th District Court of Appeals?
Yes, ma'am. Well, to start out, my parents they immigrated from the Philippines to the United States in the 1960s, in the early 1960s. So I was born in Lakewood, Cleveland area.
Mm-hmm.
But by the time I was 2, we moved to Southern Ohio. So I grew up in Pike County, Ohio, and I went to high school there. Grew up in Pike County, went to school at Miami University in Oxford, and then went to law school at Ohio State University. So then I just worked. I've always worked in Southern Ohio, and eventually I worked for about 18 years as a lawyer and ran for judge, and was elected as the first female.
So what made you decide, I want to go to law school? I think maybe a lot of people watch something, a movie or TV, and they're like, oh, I want to be a lawyer. Was it something like that, or what convinced you I want to go to law school and be an attorney?
Well, I grew up in a healthcare family. My father was recruited as a physician to Cleveland, to the Cleveland area, so they came from the Philippines. So I grew up in a healthcare family. So the law wasn't something that I was accustomed to or that I was really even aware of. My father actually thought, as I was going through school, he's like, oh, why don't you do business school?
He didn't want you to be a doctor?
No, he did not want me to be a doctor. And, and I think that maybe that was because of he thought I'd want a family.
Mm-hmm.
And for a female to have a family, he didn't think be a doctor would be conducive for that.
The hours are crazy,
yes.
Right?
But, law school's the same way. Being a lawyer's the same way, too. But he wanted me to go to business school. So I went through accounting, marketing, and all those things at Miami. They've got a very good business school. Mm-hmm. But then I thought, I just don't think I can be an accountant. Because that was my major. I was an accounting major.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, I just don't think I can do that. I like people. I like to be around people, and I like to talk with people and work with people. And I thought, if I'm crunching numbers all the time, I don't think that's for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I still didn't really know where I was going to go with that. When I think I was a senior in college at the time, junior, senior, I actually got pulled over by an off-duty officer.
Interesting.
I know. This is interesting. Because I was at the grocery store with a friend of mine, and we were driving back to the dorm, and this car starts following me from behind. It's following me really closely. So by the time I get to my dorm, I wasn't going to pull over for anybody. There's no lights on this car. I'm not going to pull over. So he pulls up behind me in the dorm, and he gets out of his car, and he comes to my window, and he's like, you ran a red light back there. So I didn't run a red light. So anyway, I ended up having to court over that. And I represented myself at that time. I had my friend who was a witness, and we did this ourselves. My brother was in law school, though, at the time.
Oh, okay.
He's in the Marine Corps, and he was a third-year law student at the time. So he printed off some case law for like an off-duty officer pulling somebody over, and so I had case law to argue my case with in college in Oxford at a municipal court.
So this cop showed up to court thinking,
yes.
two young ladies, and then you showed up with actual case law.
Right, I'm showing up with actual case law, arguing my case
as
a senior in college. So I think after that I thought, I was treated pretty unfairly. To be pulled over by an off-duty officer and given a ticket, and I'm thinking, okay.
And it's a college town, so
yes,
you probably
and it's
thought,
a college town.
Yeah.
So I guess I felt like I was treated unfairly. Other people are too.
Mm-hmm.
So then I changed my major from accounting to political science.
Mm-hmm.
Went into the law school direction
and went to OSU and did well there. It's so interesting because we talked with Judge Marilyn Zayas from the appellate court down in Hamilton County, and she has a similar experience of interfacing with the courts as a young person and not having a satisfactory experience, and that's what convinced her to go into the law as well. And I just think that's amazing that is what drives, so many people think, oh, I'm going to go to law school and I'm going to make a lot of money and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you're like, no, I was treated unfairly and I want to make sure other people have a better experience. And I think that's amazing.
Right.
So jumping off, you go to the law school, you do well. You spent some time as an attorney for the Ohio Public Defender's Office. Could you talk to us a little bit about that? Were there challenges you faced? Anything that surprised you about the experience?
Yes. When I was in law school, I was in my third year of law school, and I started working for my husband now. He's my husband now. But he had a contract with the Ohio Public Defender's Office. He did all the misdemeanor and felony work for Pike County and Adams County. So with my intern's license, I was able to be in the courtroom while I was in law school, as long as, so long as he was there.
Yeah.
But I was able to get invaluable courtroom experience at a young age, and just able to do, and once I did graduate and get my license, I was able to do jury trial work right away.
Because you had that experience.
Right. I did jury trial work, I did bench trial work that, some lawyers that go into firms, they don't even see the inside of a courtroom for years. So I was already able to do that. Of course, in a small town, you do all the writing yourself. You start from
you didn't
the
have
beginning.
A clerk or
No, you don't have a clerk, so you do all the work yourself. But I found that was a good thing because I was able to control the whole case. I knew it from the start to the finish. I knew the witnesses. I knew what everyone was going to say. So the public defender's office was a great way to learn how to practice law. I learned how to handle really heavy dockets and fast-paced work. So I loved that experience. The challenges of it was they were really demanding clients.
Yeah.
You'd
people
think
with real problems.
really demanding. Yeah. And to compare it with a private practice, sometimes the public defender clients were more demanding than the private clients. They expected so much of you. As far as anything really surprising me when I was with the public defender's office, probably nothing surprised me because I didn't know anything yet at that time. When I first started, if I knew the things now, if I knew then what I know now, I don't know that I'd be as effective. Because back then I would go to the places, I would go to the scenes of the crimes, I would go to their houses, I would go to where they lived, I would actually go to them and see them. And now that I'm older, I think, my gosh, that was dangerous. That's dangerous to go out to these places. But I did. And, I never felt unsafe because I think I was their only hope. Yeah. So they're not going to hurt me. I'm your only hope. I'm not standing in between prison and you. So, they protect me. So it was a really eye-opening experience, too.
Wow. It's funny because I don't know if you know the mayor of Chillicothe is Ross County.
Yes,
okay,
Luke Feeney.
So Luke Feeney met his wife working for Legal Aid. So now we have, and we did the podcast with him last year and talked about the experience he had working with Legal Aid. And I just find it funny that another couple met up in that formative legal
and that
atmosphere.
Was a tough time too, because another challenge I had when I first started practicing law too was being myself. My husband, Tracy, he's an extremely talented trial lawyer, and I've got a completely different personality than he does. So I had a hard time not trying to mimic his ways and the way he tried cases and the way he did things. So I had to learn how to be myself and to use my own personality and to be able to. And when you're yourself, you're more effective. Yeah. Because you're real. When you're acting like somebody else, trying to do something the way they would do it, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
So two legal power couples in Southern Ohio: Stacey Brooks, Luke Feeney, and then Judge Hoover and her husband.
Right.
So you operated a legal private practice for around 19 years before becoming a judge. What kind of law did you practice?
Everything. When you're a small town, you do everything. I did everything from bridge annexations as a law director. I did appropriation cases. I did adversary proceedings through federal bankruptcy court. I was licensed, and I still am licensed, in Kentucky and Ohio in state and federal courts.
Mm-hmm.
So I did jury trials everywhere.
Oh, wow.
Out of the 14 counties, I think I practiced in 12 of them.
Oh, wow.
Before I even became a judge.
So what made you decide, okay, I have this, 2 decades of experience, now I'm going to run for judge, or I'm going to become a judge? What made you decide to take that leap?
Practicing for those 18, 19 years, I sat in every seat in a courtroom. I was a prosecutor, I was a defense attorney, I did civil litigation, I was a witness, I've been a party in a case. And throughout all that, back from college, I have experienced the unfairness in a courtroom.
Mm-hmm.
I've experienced it firsthand. I've seen it happen to clients, I've seen it happen to myself. But I do believe in the rule of law. The rule applies to everybody.
Equally.
Right, it applies to everybody. And so I wanted to bring fairness to the bench as far as what I considered as fair, because I've seen it applied what I wouldn't consider fairly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it.
And that's not a Democratic versus Republican issue. That's just, I'm sure you probably have a lot of different kinds of people who vote for you because they believe and they know you, they've seen your work, and they know that you, no matter who you are, whether you're young, old, black, white, Democrat, Republican, they show up in your courtroom, you're going to give them a fair shake.
Right.
Great. So we've talked a little bit about your district, Southern Ohio. I think you said 14 counties?
Yes, 14 counties.
So we're talking about Adams, Athens, Highland, Hocking. You spent a lot of time working, going to school in this area. You grew up in Pike County. So over the years, have you seen these communities change at all? I know we've talked a lot, in these podcasts, we've talked a lot about, Appalachia and the scourge of opioids and whatnot. What have you seen that firsthand, and what has been your experience?
Yes, I have seen that firsthand. I'm actually seeing it kind of go full circle. People have left. They've had to relocate because there's no money, no jobs in Southern Ohio. The city that I was a law director in, which I grew up in, was Waverly. I've seen it go from city status to village status, just where the people are leaving. The uranium enrichment plant, the A plant that used to be down in Piketon, and the Coke plant down in New Boston, everything's closed. So there's no jobs.
Yeah.
People have to leave. And then with the opioid crisis, people are afraid to rear kids there. They don't want their kids growing up around that, so they're leaving. So now we're trying to have a resurgence. Local business people are trying to work together to try to bring the place back to life. So it's kind of full circle right now, and I've been able to see it go from the heydays to falling at the bottom, and we're trying to bring it back up.
Yeah. When we talked to Rick Neal about this, his district has some southeast Ohio, and he talked about the resilience of the people in the community. He sees great problems, but he also sees people who are committed to, people that are there are committed to staying and making their community better, and creating small businesses and whatnot. And I'm sure you've seen that in Waverly and other places.
Yes. Well, I have 2 kids. I have 2 kids that they are committed to Southern Ohio too. They went to school at Shawnee State University.
Okay, cool.
They're 19 and 18. The one just graduated. He's going to law school.
Oh.
And he plans to come back. You never know what's going to happen. But
where does he want to go to law? Does he want to go to the Ohio State University
he's entering Toledo, the School of Law there. He got a full tuition scholarship.
Oh, congratulations.
So, yeah, he's going there.
I know, that's always the goal, to get them through school and gainfully employed, right?
Yes. Exactly.
So most people don't know, or maybe they have an inkling that judges are elected here in Ohio. I've lived and worked in states where that's not the case, and a lot of voters here in Ohio, they vote the top of the ticket, and then they get down to the bottom where there's judges, and maybe they just don't feel comfortable voting because they don't know the people, or they don't know why it's important to vote for judges. Can you explain why judicial elections are important and why voting for judges is important?
Yes. As judges, there are 4 judges on our Court of Appeals in the 4th District Court of Appeals. We interpret the laws, and that's important because the legislature may make the laws, and in fact it's 3 people on each panel. So the 3 judges that are on the panel are the ones that are interpreting the laws as they're written. And interpretation of laws is different across the board. The same law that's in Cleveland is the same law that's in Portsmouth. but the way we interpret the law in Portsmouth may be different than the way it's interpreted in Cleveland. Until the Supreme Court of Ohio tells us how we're supposed to do it across the board, we apply it the way we do. So it's so important that people know who their judges are, they know what their values are, they know how they're going to rule on things. Because you can literally figure out how this person's going to react if you've studied the way they write, what their decisions have been. So yeah, it's very important because we interpret the law.
And you said values, and I love that you keyed in on that word because it's something we talk about on the podcast all the time, and that value of fairness and treating everyone equally, whether it's a big business or a person who maybe is on Medicaid or something like that, that they all get the same. They get this. You're going to apply the law equally to them. Is the goal.
That's the goal.
So in a recent interview, you said that gratification that comes with being a judge is often more long-term than short-term. You said the most rewarding part about this job is the impact you can make on a greater number of people well into the future. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. When I was practicing law, you get immediate gratification. The client will hug you. They will be crying with joy, or they will spit on you too. Either way,
if it doesn't go their way.
Exactly, but you know right away what you've done for that person. With being the judge, and the seat I'm particularly in is the appellate judge. You don't see that. You don't feel that. You don't have the immediate contact with the people.
Yeah.
I guess I have to have faith that I'm making the right decisions and know that my decision's going to impact the whole 4th District. And that's 633,000 people in the 4th District.
Wow.
So the decisions I make, along with the other judges, because there's 3 of us that have to make the decision, we impact a large group of people. And we may not feel how we do that immediately, but if you look to the future, you definitely see it.
So you're creating precedent for those 633,000 people.
Yes.
And so when they come to the court, their lives are going to be impacted by something you wrote maybe 10 years ago.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about what you do outside of being a judge and a mom and and a wife and all of that other stuff, because you're busy. You're on the Board of Trustees as the 4th District representative for the Ohio Women's Bar Association, the National Asian Pacific American Bar Association, the League of Women Voters, the Ohio Federation of Business and Professional Women, to name just a few. Okay, first of all, how do you have time? And why are you part of these boards and organizations? Why do you think that's important?
I think to be part of an affinity group is when important. I was a lawyer, probably more for the networking. To be able to meet people that are like-minded and get different ideas from different places. More as a judge now, it's more used as a platform. Because as a judge, it seems like people want to hear what you have to say. They do. They want to hear what you have to say. They want to hear.
You're a community leader.
Right. So if I'm able to give my message out to people about fairness and about diversity and about all these things, I have a platform to do that through the affinity groups.
Great.
So that's why I joined.
Well, and you also stay active. You run marathons, practice yoga, you have a 3rd degree black belt.
Yeah.
I mean, again, how do you find the time?
I make the time. You have to make the time to take care of yourself. Before my father passed, the last words he said to me before he could not speak anymore was, take care of yourself. You cannot take care of somebody else if you're not taking care of yourself. Physically, mentally, you have to be able to do that. The things that I've chosen to put my time into, the martial arts, the yoga, the marathons, the one common thread among all those things is it helps me focus.
Yeah.
It helps me with mindfulness. It helps me with stress relief. But it gives me something to escape.
Yeah.
I guess.
Get out of your head for a little bit.
Yes, and to just relax.
Yeah.
Most people think, my God, running a marathon, that's not relaxing. But you have 3.5 hours to think.
Yeah.
And just let your mind go.
Wow.
Be creative, just be nothing.
Yeah. No, we're talking so much about the progressive movement and self-care and pacing ourselves and making time to take So that's really great advice, and to know that somebody
Right.
as busy as you, who's a working mom and judge, and you still make time for yourself.
Right.
That's a great lesson for everybody out there
Yes.
who's listening.
It's necessary. You have to make time for yourself.
So in 2012, you became the first woman to be elected to the 4th District Court of Appeals. What was that like, and how did it feel?
It was affirming and confirming that hard work does pay off. You know, to work hard, I was always taught as a child, you know, work hard and things will go your way. And just always work hard. Mm-hmm. So when I won, that was probably the main feeling I had was that, yes, it does pay off. Mm-hmm. You know, and trying to do right, it does pay off. But then, almost immediately, I found the weight of those 633,000 people of the whole 4th District on my shoulders. So, at the one hand, I felt the affirmation and the confirmation, but at the other time, you feel the weight and the responsibility of it all. So that's basically my immediate feelings.
And that's what drives you to this day, probably, is knowing I've got to make good decisions that make people's lives better for 633,000 Ohioans.
Right. Well, like, what drives me every day is I have this innate need. I don't know if it's to do the best I can do every day. As I was a child, you know, you're always trying to meet your parents' expectations. Then as you find your husband, you always want to impress your husband, you know, and then, especially in my case, my husband was a lawyer. I wanted to be a good lawyer. I wanted to do that. And then as you have your kids, you want to set a good example for them. And now I have the 4th District. You know, here I am trying to do good for them too.
That's such a woman. Like, I feel like that's such a woman's perspective. Is we're always like trying to you know, live up to expectations of people, and we burden ourselves with it. But it creates an enormous drive to get out of bed every morning.
And then underneath all that is yourself. Yeah. You know, that you get to where you want to do good for yourself too.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, so I am friends with you on Facebook and follow your Facebook. And I saw that you were a cheerleader in college. I was also a cheerleader in college, so I was very excited to talk to you about that. Yeah. What are some lessons that you learned from cheerleading? I learned a lot. My mom made me do it because she thought I was awkward and because I had done gymnastics and I was, you know, wasn't really, but it made you get out and perform in front of people, and it connected me to different people. So were there lessons you took away from being a cheerleader?
Yes, there were. Well, a lot of people think, oh, it's just rah, 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 but no, it's not.
Very athletic.
It's a very athletic endeavor, for one thing. But when I was in college, I was actually voted the captain of the squad. And not because of my athleticism, but because of my organization skills. Because we did a lot with alumni relations, and we were like the ambassadors for the college at Miami. So they needed someone that was organized. And that could get the events all put together and things like that. Also, I think the cheerleading taught me that sometimes you just have to smile.
Indeed.
You have to smile through everything, whether it's going good or not. You know, you have to bring the positivity to the group and keep everyone going, even when you don't feel like it. You still have to keep that smile up.
I agree with that 1,000%, and I think that those lessons I've internalized, and I don't think I've ever thought of it that way, but I know that I do that. Sometimes you just have to be like, okay, here we go.
You've got to be that positive drive.
And I saw you were doing a stunt earlier with some high school girls a few weeks ago.
But you know what? That's great though, because after I posted that, so many people were like, I love that. You know, cheerleaders can be judges too.
Yes.
You know, girls can be judges too. And you know, it gets people out of the stereotypes.
Yeah.
You know.
It's kind of, what was the movie with Reese Witherspoon where she was...
Legally Blonde.
Yes. You don't have to, anybody can be a lawyer, anybody can be a judge,
you don't have to have a certain look. You don't have to have a certain personality. There's a spot for everybody where you are.
I love that. So, is there anything you want to add before we kind of wrap things up? Is there anything we didn't cover that you want to make sure that listeners out there know about you?
Throughout this campaign, I've kind of got this, not necessarily a slogan, but it's #do something about it. With all my posts, I usually put hashtag do something about it. It's basically a message that if you have a passion, do something about it. Follow it. Do something about it. Do something about what makes you tick. Throughout my campaign, I've been running a lot of races. And I always pick a certain cause. So it's also running for a cause. Childhood cancer, the Buck 50. We did that amazing race in Ross County. It's for Drug-Free Clubs of America. My attitude determines everything. Did the nationwide children's marathon, and that's for an amazing cause. Done the Air Force marathon for our military.
Where was that?
It's in Dayton.
Oh,
that was
okay.
in Dayton. But I always try to find something that I feel is important to give back. So rather than just spinning my wheels, going to these political dinners where I don't feel like I'm doing anything for anybody, at least by doing these races, I'm raising awareness. As a judge, you're on a platform, and you are supposed to bring awareness to certain things. So that's what I'm doing. This hashtag do something about it.
Great.
That's what when someone sees me, I want them to think, do something about it.
No, that's amazing. So, folks out there, if you want to connect with Judge Hoover, find a race. She's probably in it somewhere, trying to raise money for a good cause. That's amazing.
Right.
So, the last question we always ask everyone on the podcast, it's the mission statement of the podcast. Basically, after 2016, people were like, I don't know what Democrats stand for. It's like, we're going to tell you every week what Democrats stand for. And I understand with judges, we can't make it super partisan. So, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, but our final question is, what are your core values, and then how do you represent them on the bench as a judge?
My core values can be broken down pretty basically, and then they all have little branches off of them. But probably my 3 core values are to work hard, faith in God, and to serve others. As far as working hard, it's got the tenacity, the perseverance. Right now, I'm the presiding and administrative judge for the Court of Appeals. I won't be outworked.
So your peers elected you to that?
Yes.
Excellent.
So I was elected to that. They know I won't be outworked. So they know I'm dependable. I'll be there if the staff needs something. I'm there. So that's the work hard. I try to apply that to my judgeship. The faith in God is the justice and the fairness of all of it. I always try to make sure I'm doing the right things for the greatest amount of people. I was reared with a devout Catholic family. I played the organ for my church all through high school. I was God is just, it's very central in my life. So that's where the fairness in everything as a judge comes in. The serving others. My family, my mom was a nurse, my dad was a physician. They served others. That's what I grew up with. And I may not be in medicine, but I'm in the law. And I always feel like I need to serve others, like I need to give back. Part of being a mother, it's like being the mother of the 4th District. Really, it is. What good are you if you can't help somebody? You have to have empathy for people. As a judge, you want to have empathy. You need to understand things. You don't just go solely based on black letter law. You have to know what happened. You have to know and think and use empathy and common sense. So that's my 3 core values with the little subsets.
No, that's great. So before we kind of wrap things up, if people want to support you, they like what they heard on the podcast, they're like, oh, I want to help Judge Hoover get reelected. How can they find you, reach you, maybe on the internet or something?
I have a campaign website.
Okay, what's that?
reelectjudgemariehoover.com. I'm on Facebook.
Okay.
I'm on Instagram.
Cool.
And of course we have our court website.
Okay. So check her out, all those places. What was the URL one more time?
www.reelectjudgemariehoover.com.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here, Judge Hoover. I've enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you.
So this has been our latest episode of the Ohio Democratic Podcast. As always, if you have questions, comments, recommendations, who you want